Yes. Hello, all. There's a date on it. Good day and welcome to episode 3 of Cooking with Crick. I have a very special guest today. The most amazing woman I know. My lovely and beautiful wife, Aisha Rowe. Round of applause, round of applause, round of applause, round of applause, round of applause. She's going to be giving you all a great amount of looks while I'm doing all my weird little nuanced stuff. It's going to be fun. So, what are we making today, Aisha?
We are making a spice cake with cream cheese frosting.
Yeah. Okay. So, we're going to do the normal format that I've done the past couple times, but Aisha's going to be cooking, and then we're going to have a conversation after everything's in the oven. We are then going to go over the cream cheese frosting and put that together as well. So before each step, Aisha will let you know exactly what ingredients you'll need and the measurements and all of that. That was posted, but obviously we're doing that for a reminder. So then our conversation is healthy communication with your partner, and we have some great bullet points that we're going to focus on, and just have a conversation. And if there are more people on here and you have things you want to add and actually involve yourself in the conversation, that's the point. But if not, it will simply be a conversation with Aisha and I, and we'll see how it evolves. So there we are. Okay. Well, hello, Amber. Thank you so much. Good to see you. All right, so let's get started. We're going to start with, she's going to go over all the ingredients and then take it away with baking the cake.
Yeah, so this is called, well, it's called many names. Crazy cakes, wacky cake, depression cake, because this is a recipe that came from the Depression when people didn't have a lot of stuff in their pantry. It's a really easy, simple recipe that pretty much everybody is going to have the stuff in their cupboards at all times. It is vegan, which is a total accident, but I know vegans appreciate that, and it turns out incredibly moist, so you don't even need a frosting, because the frosting we're making is not vegan. But you can just top it with like a little bit of powdered sugar or anything else, or make a vegan topping if you wanted to put anything on top of it. But the cake comes out really moist. And you can make this cake in like 27 different flavors. We're choosing spice today, using pumpkin pie spice, which gets a lot of slack. I've only ever called this a spice cake, but you do use pumpkin spice. And pumpkin spice is just cloves, ginger, cinnamon, and nutmeg. So that is what's going to give this a nice spicy flavor for this cake that pairs really well with the cream cheese frosting. Do you want to...
Yeah, you can get started over here. Yeah, just making sure I can start here. Yeah, this is my favorite part of the topic of this episode, because we're going to be doing it the entire time, even before we talk about it. So there we go.
So this is, like I said, super simple. You don't need any big equipment. I have my mixer out to make the frosting for later, but I always make this by hand. You can even make this in the pan you're going to cook it in if you want. But basically you're going to take, in this case, 1.5 cups flour plus 2 tablespoons of flour. You're going to add 1 cup of sugar. I like organic cane sugar for my baking. Then you're going to use a tablespoon of pumpkin pie spice, a teaspoon of baking soda, and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And once you have all your dry ingredients together, I like to whisk those together first. This also helps not over glutenize the flour if you do this when it's dry. And once you have those mixed together, this is kind of where the whole term depression cake came from as well, is you make depressions in the dry mixture. And to those depressions you add a teaspoon of vanilla, a teaspoon of plain white vinegar. You add 5 tablespoons of any oil. In this case, it's just plain vegetable oil. And a cup of water. So the vinegar interacts with the baking soda and is what gives this the leavening that you need. So you can do away with any butter, eggs, or milk that you might normally put into a cake. And you just want to mix this by hand until it's mostly smooth and you've gotten rid of most of the lumps. You don't want to over mix it. And I make this cake all the time. I make it in chocolate, I make it in vanilla, I've even done it in caramel. And that is literally all you have to do.
So how's the consistency?
The consistency is that of cake batter.
Well, I don't make a lot of cakes, so that's why I'm asking.
The recipe generally calls for an 8-inch square pan. I like to use rounds, so I have a 9-inch round here. I spray this with whatever cooking spray you have. In our case, we have coconut oil. And then, this is my biggest secret of baking that I wish more people used. This is regular plain parchment paper. You don't even have to cut a perfect circle. Just something that's going to go into the bottom of this, and that is going to make removing your cake from this pan so much easier. And we already preheated the oven to 350 degrees.
Oh, that was my bad. I probably should have mentioned that in the beginning.
We just screwed up.
Yeah, see?
Lack of communication, see?
There it is.
See, even we aren't perfect.
Yeah, we're going to have a big old fight after this.
Just practically perfect in every way.
Yeah. I'm down to Mary Poppins it with you.
Your choice if you want to lick the batter from the bowl.
Indeed.
Another fun fact. When you get sick from eating raw batter, it's not from the eggs or anything else that's in it. It's from the flour. So if you ever want to make batter that you can eat, you need to bake the flour first. And then you can eat raw cookie dough and stuff.
Who knew? Well, apparently Aisha did.
Back of the oven. For a square pan, you're going to do like 35 minutes. For my round, I know with my oven, it takes exactly 28 minutes. So because we knew it was going to take that long, I made one earlier today.
Ta-da!
And this is our round spice cake from earlier today.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And so now, do you want to go into the frosting?
Yeah.
Now we're going to make the frosting.
One thing I did want to add, fun little trivia that I like to throw in here. Nutmeg. Obviously one of the ingredients in pumpkin spice. I was looking for, where pumpkin spice came from, how long it's been around, and honestly, I totally forgot to finish that research because I found the nutmeg research so fascinating. The joke is that, obviously people go crazy during the fall because of pumpkin spice lattes and pumpkin spice whatever. Everything is pumpkin. And
But pumpkin spice does not have pumpkin in it at all.
yeah, how about that? So the acknowledgement of basically fall spices and flavors and things like that. And I discovered that scientists had thought that nutmeg came in around 1,500 years ago or so, but it turns out it's 2,000 years older than that because they found evidence of nutmeg residue in a pot in Indonesia from 3,500 years ago. So people have been crazy for fall spices for a very long time. I just thought that was pretty fascinating. And actually, at one point in the 1300s, I guess, a pound of nutmeg cost 7 fattened oxen. And that's a lot, clearly.
Well.
Yeah. I would assume 7 fattened oxen is a little more than the $18 or so a pound of nutmeg costs now.
I'm gonna go with yeah.
Yeah, okay. There's your trivia for this episode. On to the cream cheese frosting.
So cream cheese frosting, again, super easy to make. 1 container of regular cream cheese, 1 stick of butter, and the biggest secret to this is letting it properly cream. This should be completely room temperature. I've had this out since this morning. And that's when we're going to bring in the big gun, my baby here, my KitchenAid mixer. And we're going to cream this until it is completely creamed, which at room temperature isn't going to take that long. And hopefully everybody will be able to hear us over this. I said, do you really want to bake something where we have to use the mixer? Because it's going to be loud, and it has to be on for a couple of minutes.
Yeah. And I said it was fine. This is organic, real life. This is not some polished, perfect show that, just makes everyone think that our lives are so much better. No. It's relatable. It's conversational. We want to get people involved and help each other out.
Yeah, let me just tell you how perfect our lives are 273 months into quarantine. Good times over here.
All right, well, now that things are moving, I did want to, trying to adjust the camera here so we can do this properly. I have some bullet points about what we're going to be talking about. So, first of all, anyone... Oh, Amber, does Charlie get to lick the beaters? If she was awake. Oh my God.
She took a nap today.
And it was like...
She, hadn't taken a nap since last Friday, so...
Perfect timing. She literally fell asleep 20 minutes before we started. So we're like... we would have managed, because that's what this is all about, too. You can't pretend you don't have a child in the room if a child is in the room. So
we've tried, but she doesn't take kindly to that.
She doesn't.
It's weird. I'm going to finish putting this together.
Let's do that.
So you need to do about a teaspoon of vanilla. That was probably way more than a teaspoon.
Oh, she's totally winging it.
If you used... if you used unsalted butter, then you should add salt. But I like salted butter, so I use it for everything, including my baked goods, which is super wrong to do, but I like doing it anyways. And then the thing about powdered sugar is I always sipped my powdered sugar so that my frosting doesn't end up lumpy.
Very important.
And if you have an actual sifter, this process goes much faster. I just have a fine mesh sieve, which does the exact same thing, but then you have to do this.
The actual sifter is either a crank or a handle or a trigger, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's totally not a necessary item unless we're just making a ton of things that need to be sifted all the time. And when you have a tiny little Los Angeles kitchen like we do, where space is at a premium, it's just easier to have one thing that does multiple jobs.
It's true.
So I'm going to lightly mix this so we don't end up with a big powder puff.
So you got to put that whole thing in, right?
Yep.
Okay. Well, that being the case...
So you can keep talking while I do this.
Why don't we get the setup over here? and we'll start the conversation, because why not? So there are a couple things that are really important to us that we put in a lot of effort to maintain, because I know when we first got together, I personally always had a challenge with being honest with my partner. And not like I was cheating and going behind her back or anything like that. And I mean any partner I've ever had. It's more, I don't want to be honest about something I'm feeling or thinking because I feel like it might hurt her feelings.
Or rock the boat.
Or rock the boat. Or I'm in a good mood, she's in a good mood, and I have a feeling if I bring this up, she won't be. And I don't want to have that ruin the evening, or whatever. There's a million reasons why you don't communicate those things. And one of the biggest aspects of our relationship, and why it is the best one I've ever had, is our ability to, despite anything going on, appropriately address what needs to be addressed for both of us in the time, the space, and the way it works best. And obviously, it's still troubleshooting. I was just saying last night when we were talking about this conversation how we're 6 years in and I'm still learning things about her. And I hope it's the same. I hope I'm not, fully discovered boring Chris now. But the acknowledgement of...
Baby, you're so weird. I will never know all of your weird parts.
Oh. Yeah, she'll never know all my weird parts. So, the biggest thing, and as always, I have my bullet points. I have 3 main things, and then a 4th thing that is a different type of communication. So, we have the importance of connecting. We have our disconnects and high emotions. We call, when we're upset with each other, we call that disconnects. Because we don't really have arguments or explosive screaming at each other. We've worked really hard to not be those people to each other. That's not to say that, again, emotions don't get high and things go unsaid and, challenging and all that. Of course that's there, but...
How we handle when
Yes.
those things happen. We've worked really hard to make different in this relationship.
Thank you for that. And then the third is being honest. Like I said, feeling like, oh, it's just a little thing, I don't have to say anything. And then over time, you don't say anything ever, and every situation that happens, you resent a little more, and then one day it just explodes. And who the hell wants that, right? So,
Because those emotions aren't going anywhere. That's the thing. I know a lot of people who just don't ever want to bring that stuff up, or they just want to bury it deep down.
yeah.
But they're not going anywhere. And the longer you push those big emotions down, the bigger they feel, the more impossible they feel, and they're gonna come out one way or another. It might be something stupid, like all of a sudden going completely crazy in road rage or something. But if you don't handle that stuff when it comes up, especially when it has to do with your partner, it is going to come out one way or another eventually.
Yeah, and that's the challenge. I've also... it is warm in here. Dear Lord.
With that oven and cheese.
So... Now I lost my train of thought, but that's okay. Moving on to the first one. Just our ability to connect. And...
Longest it's ever taken me to sift.
Long time sifting. Long time sifting.
I'm like, why is this taking so long?
You're getting it everywhere, too. Awesome.
I am.
So, we have a couple tools that we use and this is the other part of our conversations always, is making sure we're cooking something, we're having a conversation, and we're providing tools. So I know that's something really important that I want to put across. And as I'm working with men, we run into this a lot, where the need to guess, or oh, well, she said this, but maybe she means this, so I'm going to try this. Honesty is so much easier, guys. So much easier.
It's been really interesting to me that for some reason a lot of people come to me about their relationship stuff. Don't know why. But it is so amazing to me, and this is both men and women will come to me and they'll start venting about their partner. Men, women, and non-binary. All of the types come to me and they're venting about their partner.
Men and women. All.
Way too much
For
Moana
those
in our
parents
house.
who
But my first question, whenever somebody comes to me about this, have you said this to them? And I cannot tell you how often it is, well, no, I can't do that, or that would hurt their feelings, or I can't be honest about this, and it drives me up the wall, because so many problems would be fixed if you just were honest with your partner in the first place.
Yeah, and the victimhood and the
That's gonna be good.
yeah, the fear and the victimhood and the martyrdom of, you know, all of that. I mean, everyone deals with it on some level, but especially in a relationship. Just good God, man, we both do things that piss the other person off because we both do things. Like, when she does it, it bothers me because I know how it feels.
The things that make me the most angry that he does are things that I don't like about myself.
Yeah. And how true is that for most things about yourself in general? If you see something outside of yourself that you really don't like, chances are it's because you don't like that you do it as well, or think it or believe it or whatever. So the connection one, really, really big. We both are involved with individual, I'm part of a men's group, she's part of a women's group, and we work on ourselves, and then we come together and work with each other. And a big part of that is what we call our check-ins. And this is the great part. It can literally be 30 seconds, maybe even less, 10 seconds each. Whatever you're in the middle of, you stop, you stand in front of your partner, you look them directly in the eyes. I know this is difficult for a lot of you. Oh my God, ah. Right? Because after a few seconds, I gotta look away. I can't, you start talking and you do this. Just look them in the eyes and allow it. Okay. Allow it to be uncomfortable. And that is true vulnerability and connection. As soon as something becomes uncomfortable in that position, you are being vulnerable. That's what that is. That's a good thing. So we just say how we're feeling. Not why we're feeling it, not where it came from, not the story behind it, not what we're going to do about it later. It's literally, I'm feeling this way. I'm feeling this way. I'm tired. I'm overwhelmed. I'm angry. I'm sad. We're recognizing all of the emotions we're currently feeling and relaying that to our partner. Not to do much more than acknowledge where we are, acknowledge where the other person is, and accepting that that's where they are, and being heard. That is huge, huge. Feeling like what you're saying is being incorporated, absorbed, acknowledged, and feeling like you're acknowledging your partner. You have that moment, as I said, 30 seconds. Everyone can do that, and no matter how busy your day is. And then you move on. Instead of just passing each other and, hey, yeah, we'll talk later. And then you pass out later on because you're so freaking tired because of child stuff or whatever.
And it doesn't require a big explanation. There we go. Explanation. It doesn't require a conversation. It's just letting your partner know where you're at. And this is especially helpful if, like me, you deal with anxiety and depression. Because there are days, I have my own business, I have multiple clients. There are days when my anxiety level is just through the roof. And just by having that conversation with him and saying, I am feeling anxious, I am feeling overwhelmed, it helps release that energy. It helps him know where I'm at so he can react to any of what's happening. And it helps just calm me down because it's like, okay, saying that stuff out loud is hugely helpful in dissipating the feelings themselves.
And that leads me to our disconnects. And apologies, but the portable charger I had is not working, so I had to go get an actual charger. And
Nope.
Nope.
She rolled over.
okay.
Is she awake? Is she awake? No, it's fine.
I know you as parents can identify with that for sure. So the next one, leading into that, getting overwhelmed, sometimes the check-ins aren't enough and you have a disconnect, or you have an argument, or you have a disagreement or something, and it pops up. The biggest thing for me in my learning, and obviously this is, each person is different and each couple is different. If you have a lot of heightened emotions and you're super pissed off at each other for whatever reason, any heightened emotion, especially negative ones, make it very, very difficult to have rational, logical, quality conversation. So I learned a while ago to just say, okay. And a while is a relative term. I'm pissed off. I said something that triggered her. She's pissed off. She said something that triggered me. Okay. I'm not gonna, if she's angry at me or she's angry at something, I don't know if it's me. I just won't say anything until she brings it up. Because if I bring it up and she's not ready, there may be a bigger disconnect.
Which is not to say you should ignore it or pretend it's not there. Just let each person kind of go to their respective corners so that they can do their own work, first of all. Very important.
Huge.
Many times he has done something and I have been triggered. And I didn't know why I was triggered. I didn't know why I was angry. I didn't know why I was having the reaction that I was having. And I needed to take the time and realize, you know what? It had nothing to do with him whatsoever. It brought up this thing from when I was a kid, or it brought up this relationship I have with my sibling, or it brought up this is my second marriage. It brought up something from my first marriage. And it's really, really, really important to do that work so you understand where that is coming from. Because I don't think either of us have ever done anything purposely to hurt or upset the other person.
No, and that's...
So it's important to understand that if they do something...
I wasn't going to say it.
Sorry, we're children over here. If they do something that triggers you, it's never on purpose. Unless you have kind of a toxic relationship.
Well, yeah.
You trigger each other on purpose.
That was the other thing I was going to bring up, is if that's your go-to for connection, like, well, she got me, so I'm going to get her next time, really need to reevaluate that relationship. But that's a whole other ball of wax. So the check-ins still apply, is my point. If she's super pissed off, or I could tell she's upset, or some sort of emotional something is happening, hey, are you okay? Do you want to talk about it? If the answer is no, let it go. There may still be something that, there's this need, to walk on eggshells that so many people get. We're not immune to it either. But if there's a check-in And of course, there's always exceptions. This doesn't work perfectly every time. But if there's a check-in, okay, I know where she is, I know what's happening, I don't know the details, but I know my part in what needs to happen next, and then I will allow her to connect with me when she's ready. So everything kind of bleeds into itself. It's just like the previous episodes. The first one I talked about... see, now I'm blanking.
You made chermoula.
Yes. No, that was the second episode, and that was...
you made bruschetta.
Okay. Bruschetta, yes.
I remember what you made.
I know, right? And I talked about being honest with yourself. In the second episode, I made chermoula and talked about comfortable discomfort. All of those things apply to this stuff, too. So everything bleeds into itself, like rainbow colors. There's no hard lines between. They just kind of change into the next thing. So, it's super hot. The cutting board fan, now available from Amazon. So, being able to recognize your own part in the situation, whether you're the one with the high emotion or your partner is, and being able to check in with them enough that you can then move off to your corners, as Aisha said, and take some time. Because some people really love that in the moment, like, I just want to, that's passion, that's... And you know what? If that works and you have a healthy relationship, have at it. Go for it. Awesome. If that creates, you're one of those, you scream at each other and then you just make out, do it. But we're not those people. So...
It actually creates even more tension for us, especially because of how we were raised. And
for sure,
we both kind of were raised in the ideal that pretty much everybody of our generation was, you just don't talk about those things. You're just going to bury them deep, deep down and never speak of them ever again.
Right. Yeah. That trick question of, oh, you know when a good time to talk about that is? When? And then the person just walks away because there's no response to that. So, the next thing, because we talked about the disconnects, now I got to check.
Honesty with your partner.
Thank you. Compassionate honesty about hard things. And I started talking about this in the beginning, where I just wouldn't admit things to my partner because they were hard. It was too big. I was... yeah. And that's basically... It's a hookup relationship at that point. Because you're living together, or you're dating, whatever, and you're intimate with each other physically, but clearly not emotionally and mentally, because you're not bringing those things up. You're not being yourself. You're being a version of who you think that person wants to be with. And that's not a sustainable relationship.
Well, and that's another thing that when people come to me about their relationships that I ask is, do you feel like you are yourself when you are in that relationship? Do you feel 100% that that person sees you, that they know you, and that they love you? 100%. And so many people I know are like, no, I've never shared this side with them, or I've never been able to tell them about this. And again, that's work that you have to do on your own, but also in your partnership, you need to be able to be yourself and not have to put this persona or this character out that person is only going to love. That persona or character.
Yeah.
Did that make sense?
Yes.
No,
To me,
that
anyway.
came out weird. He speaks Asian fluently. It's fantastic.
I do. By the way, hi Aunt Sherry, and hi Emily. Good to see you both on here.
Yeah,
should have said it before.
So we were talking about compassionate honesty, and
Yes.
one of the things that came up in our relationship was being able to talk about the hard things when the other person is also dealing with hard things.
Okay, yes, and I just wanted to preempt this, and then it's all yours. For those of you who don't know, my sister committed suicide a little over a year ago now. Obviously, it was a major emotional experience, still is. I'm still dealing with a lot of that. But
I was also dealing with things. Ironically, the night before, or I don't know, maybe just bad timing, the night before we got the news, I had said to him that I was just at my breaking point.
That's right, yeah.
I have dealt with depression and anxiety my entire life. Motherhood has not come super easy to me. I've also been working full-time with my own company since she was born. It's been super overwhelming. I did not sleep through the night until she was 20 months old. So it's been a lot of challenges. And I had already felt like I was at my breaking point. And then this happened, which clearly trumped everything else because of its enormity and because of the fallout for his entire family. And so I started falling into my old patterns and behaviors, which was like, oh, just don't feel those things anymore. Just push that down. There's a fantastic song from Book of Mormon called "Turn It Off," which
that's right.
just makes me laugh every time I sing it, because it's just don't feel those feelings. Turn them off instead.
You know what?
And that is what I started doing.
I think we need to post a link to that song down in the.
Oh, it's
down
fantastic.
in the comments.
On that note, as I wave around the knife, we're gonna check the cake.
So, obviously, all these episodes have been about 45 minutes, so we're kind of right on cue with that. And we knew the cake was going to be done in time if we wanted to eat it hot. The problem is you need to let it cool for how long?
At least a half hour.
At least a half hour before you put the frosting on it, or it's just going to...
That means it needs about 2 to 3 more minutes. You want to catch it, though, as soon as your knife comes out clean. You need to take it out. Because it will... And even if it has like a little speck or two, take it out, because it'll keep cooking in the pan.
That's right. Right. So we are going to put frosting on the cake that Aisha already made this morning, which has already been cooled. But for those of you who are following along, if you were, make sure you let your cake cool for
You want to leave it in the pan for about 10 minutes, and then generally, depending on where it's at, you invert it onto a plate. That's when that parchment paper comes in handy, because you just peel the parchment paper off and you have a perfect round. Or you can put it in a square pan and eat it straight out of the pan. You don't have to get fancy with this.
This is home cooking. Yeah. All right then. Well, I just wanted to touch on one last thing. We talked about communicating as far as language and verbally engaging your partner.
We didn't finish on communicating when it's hard.
Oh, yeah, sorry. See, I'm jumping ahead. Thank you, baby. I appreciate that. Thank you for calling me on the fact that I didn't remember that. See? Oh, man, this is, yeah. So, with my sister's suicide, obviously having a huge challenge there emotionally, she decided that it would be better, because all of that is always in quotes, it's very subjective. She did not want to burden me, or additionally burden me, with the things that were challenging her. Because she didn't want to put more on my shoulders, or add to my trauma, all of that stuff. And here's the really, really important part. I heard something recently that empathy doesn't mean that you're condoning what's happening. Oh God, that smells good. Oh yeah, it's gonna be good. So in the same way, you can acknowledge the truth of something without a need to resolve it or move through it in a huge way. Sorry, we're frosting as we're talking.
No, that's fine. I wasn't sure if you wanted me to wait, but continue. I can do this while you're talking.
Oh, well, do it on the camera then. Here. And we can chat more. Just turn slightly. There we are.
Cheat towards the camera.
Yeah, we're both come from a theater background. We know how it goes. And it's a cooking show, so it's fine to not show our faces while the cooking is happening. But basically, she told me all this later. She didn't curl up in a ball or anything, but just pushed it all down and didn't address it. And then many times, I would be having a challenge, and I would be expressing it to her, and then
I would just completely shut down.
Yeah, and I started thinking that what I was saying wasn't being heard, and it was this whole other thing that I because she wasn't telling me she had any of this stuff happening, I didn't know, so it seemed weird that she wasn't receiving what I was doing, and we were kind of in this separate experience, and we weren't connecting at all. It was very, very challenging. Anyway, let's look at this for a second, shall we? Here it is, folks. Pumpkin spice cake with cream cheese frosting. And as we finish up our conversation, we're going to cut a slice of this. We're going to try it. So basically, we had the conversation. We talked it out, and we were able to express those truths that we were talking about. I love it. Back up enough to see my face.
We have a very tiny kitchen.
Yeah. Anyway, so when we finally got there, the relief and the, oh my God, that was happening the whole time, and just this like, wow, okay, we still have a lot to deal with emotionally, but that needed to be acknowledged and addressed. And this idea that I'm going to sacrifice my feelings to protect you because you have your feelings, it does not help. It doesn't help. Even, and that's the thing, it's kind of like you assume if you start it, you have to go through this whole process and finish it. You don't. Hey, I'm feeling this way. I know you're going through what you're going through. Are you in a position to discuss it? If not, I totally understand. I just wanted to let you know. Holy crap, what a difference. You literally don't have to actually have the conversation, but just acknowledging it's there so that I'm going through what I'm going through, but I'm also aware that she is too. And we have since resolved. I mean, it's an ongoing thing, but... Okay, so she's waiting.
I want to try the cake. I wasn't sure if I needed to wait.
Well, I generally like to finish the topic before we taste, but it's okay. We got one last thing. We could do it while we're eating. It's fine. Cheers.
Cheers. Here's to us.
All right. And look,
That's
if you can
so
see
good.
just how fluffy that is. Oh. As my lovely wife Aisha says, you're welcome. Excuse us while we munch for a second before we finish our topic. While we're in this space, Jessica, Jamie, Tracy, that's all I saw go by so far. If there are more of you, how are we doing? Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. We appreciate you being on here. And if anyone has any insights or thoughts that they want to throw out or comment, please do. Until then, just one last thing for me, and I will finish that in a minute, is the idea of non-verbal communication. And many of you, I'm sure, know about this, but some of you might not. Love languages. There are 5. And these are ways that I know so many people, especially women that I've talked to, they get so frustrated that their guy isn't providing them with the emotional communication that they need, but they're looking at it verbally when they're actually providing a lot that they're not even aware of. And so many guys don't even know how to express it because we're not given a lot of the tools because we're told we don't have to, or we shouldn't, or that's not manly, whatever the hell, you know. And this runs the gamut. It's not necessarily men and women, it's masculine and feminine, right? So it's whatever partner relationship you're in, this all applies. So just quick, I wanted to go over the love languages. And just so you have them.
But very important to know what your love language is and what your partner's love language is.
Yeah. So if that's not a natural thing for you to just automatically do, that you can take that into account when you realize they might be needing something, it might be needing some connection or something like that. So the 5 love languages are words of affirmation. So obviously the first one is verbal. Second one is quality time. Then acts of service, gifts, and physical touch. Now, being the massage therapist that I am, physical touch has always been a love language of mine, even before I knew what that was. You know, just walking by, even having my arm at my side, but just dragging it across her thigh or her butt. Or, you know, a touch on the shoulder, a quick hug, a peck on the lips as I walk by. Just a need to physically be in contact. That is certainly one of mine.
It is not one of mine. So I have to make an effort to make sure I am utilizing that love language for him, because it's not one that naturally comes to me. It's not one I ever thought about it. We didn't have a lot of that growing up. So it was a love language I've had to learn how to do.
Indeed. And I am not a big gifts person. If someone likes flowers or...
You're damn good at it.
No,
That's
thanks.
an annoying part.
Yes, no, thanks.
He's made me cry on every special occasion.
I have.
Yeah.
It's kind of great. But I mean like the traditional candy, chocolates, roses, jewelry, you know, the typical what a man buys a woman stuff. There's also other different types of gifts, but in general, that's never really been me, and I haven't dated a lot of women who really needed that stuff. So that one really didn't happen much for me. So again, words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, gifts, and physical touch. So you can look them up. It's easy enough. I'll put a link in the description or the comments, and check it out. See if
find out what yours is and find out what your partner's is. Like mine is acts of service. I'm almost 100% acts of service. It's huge for me. My first husband was gifts. So he would give me lovely gifts, but it never came through to me because I'm not a gifts person at all. So even though he gave me lovely gifts, it wasn't the feelings of love I was hoping for because I'm not into gifts at all. Yeah. So it's really important to understand both what yours is so you can communicate that to your partner if they don't already know, and find out what your partner's is so that you can work on
connecting.
Giving them, yeah.
Because if that's how they feel connected, then it would benefit you to do that as part of connecting. I run into this all the time too, the idea that, oh, well, you know, yeah, relationships take work, but then on the flip side, there's this desire to have everything happen organically. Well, you can't have both. It doesn't work that way. The work part is doing things that don't come naturally, because that's why it's work. It's uncomfortable because you're not used to doing it. It's true of anything, right? But the fact that you're not perfect, that you're not great at everything, that you don't come out on top every time and all this stuff, your partner knows. So to actually say, hey, I'm kind of bad at this, or I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you mean. Did you mean this? Or like admitting that you don't have it all together and you might not understand something about your partner is a gateway into a conversation of information, vulnerability, connection, and intimacy. That's a great place to start, not knowing.
But when you're with the person you're supposed to be with, I think all of that comes very... People always say, well, it takes work. And yeah, it does, but it's also in what that feels like to you. Because when you're with the person that you really want to be with, and you're going to make those efforts because you're like, I want to get to know them. I want to find out the parts of them that make them how they are and who they are. And
Yeah.
I want to do things that make their life easier. I want to do things that help them. I want them to feel loved. So, yeah, it is work, but it's like, you know.
Well, and I would change that to effort. It takes effort.
Yes. Yes. Work has kind of a negative connotation to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you have it, folks. And now you're all fixed. You're welcome. But that's pretty much all we wanted to talk about and share. Anything else that's popping up for you? And obviously we went a little longer today because we're having an actual conversation. I'm just not chit-chatting to myself. But anyway, that is the pumpkin spice cake with cream cheese frosting and our conversation on healthy communication with your partner. So thank you for tuning in for episode 3 of Cooking with Crick and Asia. And obviously the replay will be available. Any additional comments or questions, throw them up there. We'll put the link to that song as well as the love languages up either in the comments or on the description, wherever it happens to be, but it'll be there. So I would like to thank my beautiful, gorgeous, lovely wife for being my special guest, being my special everything.
Oh, that was so bad.
And we will see you next time on Cooking with Crick. Next Thursday.
Thanks, guys.
More announcements to come about what we'll be doing and what the topic is. That'll be coming up soon. So, have a good one. Thanks so much.